Hello and welcome back to my technology podcast. I'm your host, Bastian Nuffel. And first of all, sorry for the long hiatus. That was definitely not planned, but yeah, if you want to learn more about why that delay was happening, have a look at the show notes. I'm going into a bit more detail there, but that's not really part of the discussion that I want to have today, so I'm leaving that out. But actually, for the discussion today, the hiatus was actually not a bad thing because I have been switching jobs in the meantime. And one of the initial things that I had to do for my new job perfectly played into today's topic. Today, I want to discuss with you the world of cross platform development. And this is compared to classic programming languages and so on, a relatively new thing that came out of the last decade, especially in the mobile space, but is getting now more and more common nowadays. Of course, when you go in the mobile space, the predominant solutions are native apps written in Objective-C and Swift for iOS and Java and Kotlin for Android. But the app space has got a lot more diverse in the past, let's say, 7 to 8 years. And the implications out of that long history now of 8 years for the future are actually quite interesting. So, of course, you have the hybrid approach where you have web applications that are encapsulated in a, let's say, shell application so that they run as a native app. Then you have the concept of progressive web applications, which was actually pushed heavily by Apple with the launch of the first generation iPhone, and only got more traction again years later when it got pushed by Google. And yeah, then you have the first cross-platform solution, which was really building against the iOS and Android SDKs directly. To my knowledge, was the solutions based on the Xamarin Android and Xamarin iOS systems, Xamarin Forms. There might also have been something similar, like PhoneGap, I think, was also a solution, but I really did not look into that at any time, so I am not really familiar in how similar PhoneGap and, for example, Xamarin Forms are. And then you had newcomers like React Native, Flutter, and a framework that I actually just recently learned about due to my new employer is NativeScript. And the company that I'm now working for has teams working with React Native, Flutter, and NativeScript. And due to my work in the past almost 4 years with Xamarin Forms, also brings the experience of that framework into the equation for the company. And I actually had to work on figuring out for a new project what would be the best cross-platform solution. And the results of that were pretty interesting because the discussion actually really started from a developer and technology perspective. And the result was that it became more like a management and strategy decision. So more like a business decision. So what is the best way for the company to go forward instead of what's the best technology? And the reason for that being that these technologies or these frameworks are so similar in so many ways that you can basically say, okay, it doesn't matter if I take React Native or Flutter or Ionic, which is a hybrid framework, or Xamarin Forms, and you will always get to the point where you have a native app running on iOS or Android. The differences are really in the details of each of those frameworks and how they interact with certain things. So they have their own advantages and disadvantages. And for us, it came out in the end on what is the experience that we have in the company. What experience do we have in the team that is going to build that new application? And what is the company's strategy? And this discussion really emphasized for me a point that I'm already thinking about for months right now. Especially now that you have languages even like Swift and Kotlin, which everyone is thinking of as the native platform languages for iOS and Android now, going cross-platform. So for me, the future of software development, of coding, is looking a lot different than in the past. Because it's more like being, what's your preference in code? What code style do you like best? What do you prefer as a developer compared to what is really required? Of course, this comes back to the whole discussion with the management and business strategy and decisions, because you, as a developer, might like React Native and the whole JavaScript approach, but in your area, they're, for example, only looking for .NET developers that can build Xamarin apps. So you can like React Native as much as you want when you're not able to get a job developing in React Native. So this is getting actually a lot weirder in that regard. So it's more like, yeah, it's convoluted. You cannot give a clear answer to someone who asks you, what is the best language to learn? I actually got that question 2 days ago. And I want to get into software development. What language should I actually learn? And it surprised me because during the whole process of finding my new job, I looked a lot at job openings in our area, and there is still a lot of demand for Java. So in the end, I got back to a classic answer that Java is a good entry point for starting development, especially since you can still get jobs in it. And Java and C# are easy to learn, as are JavaScript based languages as well. So once you learn one of these languages, and I know there will be people who will be arguing that JavaScript is not a language. I know that discussion, but it's a flavor. And if you ask me, programming languages are merging more and more and becoming actually flavors of each other. And I was thinking about what would be the next logical step in the whole development of programming languages getting interchangeable. And with the discussion that we had in episode 2 of the podcast regarding the personal computing market changing in the way it does, and the whole issues with transparency in technology and what companies are doing with our data and so on and so forth, I came to a point where I was thinking, hey, it could be a nice idea to merge those two worlds into a platform that is open source, auditable, and let's say programming language agnostic. So developing a platform, an operating system that you can actually program against with whatever language you want. Having all the platform APIs properly exposed. The challenge would be especially to provide interoperability between the different languages, because in an ideal scenario, you would be able to have, let's say, a application written that for that platform, developed in, let's say, C#, based on the Xamarin or .NET 6 stack, and include libraries that have been written in native script. So you have some glue logic that exposes each other endpoints, so you can actually use everything in the way you want to use it, and you don't have to think about what was that particularly library developed in. That would be an optimal scenario, because then it would not actually matter what your company is actually coding in, and you could release your software to that platform with the least amount of effort. That does not mean that I am a friend of mixing languages in a team or in a product. That can actually get very messy. So that's actually not a good thing. But these would be challenges to think about. So I give that as as an idea, as a thought experiment, um, to develop something like this, a platform that we can all use as um, consumers, businesses, and trust, because it's open and transparent and secure, but also provides the flexibility for developers to release their applications with the least amount of effort. So you can support your existing applications on Android and iOS or Sailfish OS or whatever is out there, and still support that new platform, and have a new platform that can grow in the market. Overall, I think that is a very interesting proposal and perspective, but it has a lot of challenges, especially that you would probably, for something that is as open and transparent, you would probably not get proper funding. And I would like to get proven wrong, and I would really like to be involved in a project like that. And I really want to open up this discussion with this podcast episode. If something like that would be something that the community of cross-platform development and perhaps the app development community at large would be interested in. And if it comes out that there is interest, perhaps we can gather together a group that acts like a think tank and gathers information and develops concepts how we could actually make something like that happening. I hope that this gets some gears in your head turning, and leave feedback on this, either on the videos or on the show notes on my blog, and we will have a discussion on that, and I will pick up this train of thoughts in a future episode. Thanks again for listening to my rambling, and I see you in the next episode. Bye.